Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Ohio AgNet podcast for a Monday morning. I am joined by a outstanding group of panelists today. You will notice if you're watching this Facebook Live, we do not have Matt Reese with us today. Matt is hopefully getting a little bit of sleep. Matt and his wife, Jenna, welcomed a new baby. And so welcome to Samuel Reese last week. That family has a lot going on right now. And so congratulations to the proud parents and all the rest of the family. We're really happy for them. But Matt has got to take some very necessary time off to make sure things are attuned to there as well. Joining me, though, we have Joel Penorwood. Joel is back with us again. It's been a few years, actually, probably since we've had you on the podcast, Joel, but he is making all things work technologically for us. Also with us today, Dwayne Statler. And Dwayne is a farmer down in Hancock County, also a board member for the National Pork Producers Council, and going to lead us into some of the discussions we have today about California's Proposition 12 and what that means to agriculture beyond the state of California. Before we get into that, though, interesting weather weekend. It's beautiful out there this morning. It was beautiful going into the weekend, but Saturday, not so much. It got a little bit windy around here. What did you guys see?
I don't have any leaves to rake up in the front yard anymore. That's pretty nice, but my neighbor has all of my leaves now, so whether that's good or bad, I'll talk to them later. We'll smooth things over.
Dwayne, how about you?
That's about yeah, Margie was glad to see the leaves gone, but she did mention it was replaced by corn stalks and corn husks. So
we got quite a few corn leaves tied up around the pine trees and around the yard here too. And the thing is, I looked across the landscape. The nearest cornfield's about 3/4 of a mile down the road. So those leaves really carried far. We were pretty much surrounded by soybeans and some alfalfa this year. So to have those leaves come in, they were traveling and they were traveling pretty well. Well, looking around the area, harvest obviously has continued on pretty strong last week with some beautiful weather, and really looking ahead through this week, the forecast looks great to get harvest for a lot of guys wrapped up. I know here in Henry County, talking to some of the elevators, maybe about 10% of the soybeans out there in some areas yet, more in the northern part of the county. Corn harvest well over 60% done right now, and yields outstanding on soybeans, very good on corn. Some concern about vomitoxin. Dwayne, you're just a little bit south and east of me. What are things like sort of in the Hancock-Putnam County area?
We've been pretty good. I'm well pleased with our yields. We've even finished the double crop beans. We had some custom work for double crop beans. Double crop beans turned out real well, depending upon where they're at as far as for rainfall and moisture they got. But I think the low was 25 and the high was 50 on the double crop beans. So just depending whether you got some rain and when you got it, timely rain. Our corn yields have been real good. Our beans, I think we averaged about 69 or 70 bushel on our bean yields. Corn yields, we've been from a low in the 180s to 240. So wow. Again, it just depended where you got hit with the rain. Rain made a big difference. 1.5 inches of rain in July and August made a big difference this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joel, I know you've been crisscrossing the state a little bit in the last week. What have you seen?
Well, it's amazing to see some of the variants. Things are in my area really starting to in that wrap up phase, but things, up over your way, like you were saying, still a fair amount of things to go, but it's nice to see a good crop. As folks were saying, yes, depending on what you've gotten, when did the rain shut off? When did they turn on? And it was also extremely interesting to see, we had so much late planted stuff this past year, things, that were going in the ground mid to late June. And, it's just almost a disaster when that happens, but people fairly happy with those things. They said, this is the quote maybe of the year. You know what? I don't think I can complain right now. Getting a good price at the elevator. Things, even though they went in late, they're harvesting just fine. Things are doing okay. And so things are wrapping up in our area for sure. And deer are on the move. Yes. As we saw this morning out in front of our house, there was a car heading on over to Honda to start the work for the day. And unfortunately struck one of those deer from a nearby cornfield that was being harvested last night. Looks like they scared them up and have been moving quite a bit as a result. But things going really, really well over in our area.
Good. Well, good reminder out there also to all those motorists that are traveling. It is still harvest season, so slow it down for the farm equipment that's out there. Guys trying to get things wrapped up. And yeah, definitely for the deer and other wildlife that are on the move, Especially with daylight savings time changing. It gets dark a little bit earlier now, and those animals are going to be going, and you may not see it until it's too late. So, yeah, Joel got to do some traffic duties this morning, so he's pulling double time right now.
I'd say attempted traffic duties. There are some people just not, they saw Joel, they were like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, bam, goodbye.
They were not understanding your hand signals, huh?
Yeah, and that was not on their radar. Well, just getting to work.
Big topic we want to delve into in the podcast today, and we'll just preview it now, deals with California Proposition 12. And interesting because it's something in the state of California that they voted on, but really has a much larger impact outside their borders. Dwayne, can you just give us a quick overview? What exactly is California Prop 12, and why does it have the attention of agriculture across the country?
Well, California Prop 12 was a proposition that was passed, I believe, about 4 years ago now, if my memory serves me correctly. It involved all sorts of livestock animals, chickens, veal, beef, how they're raised, and put numbers in. The number that really affected the pork industry was the fact that every animal, sow, had to have 24 square feet of open pen space. And that was in total contradiction to what the industry is. As we in Ohio well remember that we made a deal with HSUS and Wayne Purcell back in 2010 that set up the Ohio Livestock Care Standards Board. And through that, we determined when gestation stalls could be used, when they couldn't be used, the size of the gestation stalls, and then going to the open pen after the sows are determined pregnant. Through all that, HSUS was in and saw some of the work that Pat Horde had done. Pat was one of the first ones looking at changing to be in compliance and what kind of an avenue do we have, and Combox and Coopers were right there with him. And they came back in, and it's amazing that in the open pen gestation that you find it, and where Pat ended up was at about 20 square feet. There's a lot of open pen space when you have sows or pigs laying, because people don't understand that pigs like to be close to one another. You can have a whole barn and have 20 pigs in it, and they will all be probably in one or two spots with everybody laying up against one another. So that leaves a lot of open space. Well, they knew that was at 20 feet. So hence, when California Prop 12 came, they decided to make it 24 square feet because they knew the industry where they were at. It was more of a ploy just to try to make something to make someone spend money, which worked. And the unfortunate part of it is, for residents of California, is the fact that there is only about, when this was passed, it was only about 2% of the industry that could be compliant with that. Today, it's up to about 3% of the industry, and they consume about 15 to 16% of all the pork consumed. So that means someone was going to be short, because you just can't turn around and get that kind of compliance that quick. That is what the Prop 12 did to us as far as for pork. And with chickens, it had things out. Veal calves, it had things stringent beyond normal practices, beyond what the American Veterinary Association has recommended as far as for care of such livestock. So that's where we're at with Prop 12, where it came up at.
Very good. And stay tuned to the podcast when we have that out, because we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what this actually means now, not only for the pork industry, but for agriculture across the country. And probably most importantly, as Dwayne alluded to, for the consumers, not only there in California, but really as these concerns are out there, what that does to the price of production. And ultimately that can transfer to the cost of food, which we all know has gone up due to inflation. Well, also coming up in a little bit on the podcast, I had a chance last week to visit with Dr. Laura Lindsay. She is our OSU Extension soybean and small grain specialist. We talked a little bit, sort of a year in review, if you will, of the soybean season production, talked a little bit about the soybean performance trials. She did some amazing numbers coming from some counties, some areas with a little bit dry conditions, not showing up as strong, but a little bit about the research she's conducting as well. That was very interesting. Also, I had a chance last week to catch up with Aviva Arendine. Now, Aviva is a deputy director on the National Economic Council. One of the big points of discussion around the country are fuel prices. Gasoline prices seem like they continue to stay high. She shared a little bit of the thoughts coming from the National Economic Council and the White House about how those prices are maybe changing slightly and what we can look at going into the holiday season. So all that coming up in the podcast. We hope you will tune into that as well. But for Facebook Live, for Joel, for Dwayne, I'm Dusty Sonnenberg, and we will catch up with you later.